Module 26 Sakai Hoetsu, Tani Buncho, Ido Rinpa and Visiting Chinese Artists and Their Pupils. I, Dr. Rita Pratap, former head of the Department, Drawing and Painting, University of Rajasthan, Jaipur. The 19th century was marked by a breakdown of lineal affiliations among painters in Edo. While members of the Kano school continued to receive official commissions, the perception that their work was state and that training in their studios was of little value was widespread. Dissatisfaction with the status quo led many painters to experiment with the newly introduced themes, styles and techniques from China and the West, as well as to seek inspiration from the study of indigenous styles of earlier eras. Individual creativity and freedom of expression was given importance. As a personal aesthetic choice, they adopted a particular style. In the 17th and early 18th century, Rinpa had been a dynamic aesthetic force in Kyoto. Sakai Hoetsu 1761 to 1828 led the movement that promoted the revitalization of the themes and style of Kyoto's Rinpa artists. Being the son of the Lord of Sakai, Hoetsu had been steeped since childhood in a rich cultural environment that included training in Kano painting, study of Chanayu, and most importantly, the opportunity to study works by Korin, of whom his family had been an important patron. Initially, Hoetsu painted as an avocation, but in 1797, after giving up the right to succession on the pretext of poor health, he took Buddhist vows. Later, he established a studio in Edo, where he dedicated himself to the painting, calligraphy, and poetry. He participated enthusiastically in cultural activities in the Yoshiwara, associating with many of the leading scholarly, literary, theatrical, and artistic personalities of the day. His Hakai Keaya Koyako verses appear in many anthologies, including Utamaro's picture book of selected insects. A two-panel folding screen of the 36 Immortals of Poetry is emblematic of many qualities that inform Edo Rinpa. Dated to 19th century, ink and colors on silk, and at present in the Freer Gallery of Art, Smithsonian Institution, Washington, D.C. Here, these Waka poets were traditionally portrayed in a dignified manner, befitting their aristocratic status. But in Hoetsu's interpretation, they are unceremoniously packed together in a confining space. Here, Hoetsu's humor is more pointed and his colors more intense. The assembled poets look inebriated, bored, or simply bewildered. Hoetsu's another pair of two-fold screen is Summer Rain and Autumn Wind, color on silver paper, and at present in the collection of National Commission for Protection of Cultural Properties, Tokyo. That he was of direct line is quite certain, for on the back of Korin's screen copying Sotatsu's depictions of the wind and thunder gods. He painted a representation of weeds and vines by a river bank on a silver background. In this work, the tendency is evident in Koren towards elegance and a more flowing and refined type of composition than that used by Sotatsu are carried even further by Hoetsu. Here is something comparable to European Rococo decoration. The bold silhouette shapes are gone, the stream is smaller now and has more gentle and rhythmical swirling movement. Boldness and gorgeousness have been sacrificed to attain greater elegance and refinement on a small scale. Some realistic influence is to be seen here, particularly in the depiction of the wind-blown vines at the left, from which an autumn-colored leaf or two swirls in the silvery air. Hoetsu was a great admirer of Koren. This led him to search for Koren's extant works, which culminated in his compilation of 100 paintings by Koren, Koren Haya Kuzu, and a collection of seals of the Ogata school, Ogata Ryu Inpu. At the same time, he sought to restore and stimulate the appreciation of Koren's art by means of his brush and accordingly executed a number of paintings, chiefly flowers and birds. On the back of the screens of the wind and thunder gods painted by Koren after Sotatsu, which were then in his own collection, today in the keeping of the Commission of Protection of Cultural Properties, Tokyo, Hoetsu added two compositions of autumn plants, in the wind and after a storm, a theme closely akin to the main subject of the screens. Against a silver background, agreeable, contrasting with the gold ground on the other side, he expressed poetry of nature with all the delicacy of spirit and touch characteristics of the late 18th century dilettantes. First published in 1815, this compendium would be instrumental in rekindling interest in rimpa among painters, lacquerers and potters, and textile designers both in Edo and other parts of the country. The preface of the book was written by Hoetsu's friend and neighbor. Kameda Bosai, 1752 to 1826, was a distinguished Confucian scholar, poet and calligrapher. In a woodblock printed book, Kuwagata Kesai has depicted 5 friends at a restaurant from Food Connoisseurship, 1822, Ravitz's collection, Santa Monica. Friendly gatherings at Edo's many restaurants and tea houses often brought together artists and intellectuals of diverse backgrounds. Pictured here are the Kameda Bosai with his hand raised, Sakai Hotsu with his back to the viewer, and the Koyaka poet Ota Nanpo with wine up in his hand and Shibutsu. Tani Buncho, 1763 to 1840, is generally considered the founder of the Edo literary movement. Born to a samurai family, he was in service of Matsudaira Sadanobu, the powerful chief advisor to the shogunate from 1787 to 1793 and architect of the Kansai reforms. Sadanobu's own antiquarian interest and involvement in the rebuilding of the imperial palace at Kyoto led him to dispatch Buncho on a nationwide survey of antiquities. These travels gave Buncho a wide-ranging familiarity with traditional Japanese themes and styles, as well as the opportunities to study Chinese European painting techniques employed by artists in Nagasaki. Buncho himself was a central figure in an equally lively saloon in Edo, whose members met in the convivial surroundings of popular downtown restaurants and tea houses. His friends shared rare books, helped to find publishers and buyers for each other's work, and organized exhibitions to promote fellow artists' career. This practice continued to be popular in the city throughout the 19th century. Buncho was thus a gifted and versatile painter. He was perhaps more influential as a teacher and advocate of the study and practice of various pictorial styles of past and present, especially literary and Western style painting. In his later life, he became a wildly eclectic painter. An example is of a landscape painted by Tani Buncho. It is ink and slight color on paper and at present in the collection of JEVM Kingado, USA. He studied the styles of all schools, and these elements can be seen in his works, especially in the above said landscape. Tani Buncho had a special eclectic style, often counted among Nanga painters. He had also studied Kano, Tosa, Nagasaki, ukiyo and Western techniques. Buncho, unlike his fellow Nanga painters who often represented anti-establishment sentiments, moved in prominent political circles. He wrote treatises on painting and produced a series of woodblock prints featuring famous mountains. In the later years of his life, he developed his well-known spontaneous abbreviated style. This twofold legacy is reflected in the works of his associate and student Watanabe Kazan, 1793 to 1841. Kazan was attracted to the Bunjin philosophy and produced some paintings in the literary manner. Kazan's large corpus of paintings and sketches includes many portraits of his friends that reveal his scientific curiosity, keen power of observation, and mastery of Western pictorial style techniques. A hanging scroll painted by him is of the portrait of Ozara Buzai Emon, 1827, hanging scroll, ink and colors on paper, and at present in the Cleveland Museum of Art. This painfully realistic life-size portrayal of the giant Buza Emon captures the piteous facial expression and long hands and feet of a man whose appearance made him the object of both fascination and revulsion. Kazan's approach, however, combines scientific curiosity and compassion. In addition to painting and teaching to supplement his meager income, Buncho suggested Kazan to host commercial painting and calligraphy gatherings. Buncho Kazan and their followers called themselves Bunjin on social, not on stylistic grounds. They working from within shogunal officialdom. They working from within shogunal officialdom saw their artistic endeavors both as a means of self-expression and as a part of rational quest for historical and empirical knowledge that might contribute to national, political and social reform. Always the clergy were the enthusiastic calligraphers and painters. The Zen master Gibbon Sengai 1750 to 1837 was the abbot of Shofuku-ji in Hakata from 1790 until his retirement in 1811. His painting was in a simple, direct and spontaneous style. It was widely appreciated and thought particularly appropriate to the world of tea. His characteristic work, Frog and Snail, is a hanging scroll, ink on paper, early 19th century, was done in a few rapid strokes with the brush only half charged with wet ink. This results in unevenly inked line edges in both the calligraphy and the subject. The 7 Chinese characters blend perfectly into the picture. Their meaning, swallow the 3 Buddhas, past, present and future, in one mouthful, refers to the innate perfection of all, of frog, of snail, of swallowing. The lowly status but sacred potential of the frog was a common Buddhist theme. Most important and certainly the most celebrated of the Edo Zen master was Hakuin Ikaku 1685 to 1768, who was more than anyone revitalized and Japanized Zen, expressed himself in particularly bold and powerful style in a large portrait of Daruma, Bodhidharma, hanging scroll, ink on paper, dated to 1751. Here he used his brush with such vehemence that a tip splayed in places, producing a dramatically rough-edged effect. Another Zen artist of this time, the sculptor monk Inku 1628 to 95, wandered around the country and left many statues of Buddha and Bodhisattvas in rough-hewn wood for peasants worshipping at regional Buddhist temples and Shinto shrines. Shokenan Bosatsu, it is an unpainted wood, late 17th century, is a good example created by Inku. He revived Zen temples and traditional teachings and practices, bringing the teaching of the sect not only to monks and the intelligentsia. He revived Zen temples and traditional teachings and practices, bringing the teaching of the sect not only to monks and the intelligentsia but also to the peasant farmers and ordinary folk who flocked to listen him. In the course of his life, he made large number of simple Zen paintings, which he gave away if he thought that someone could gain benefit from them. Many of them are light-hearted and humorous. On first sight, but a closer scrutiny always reveals some deeper message that is serious. In a way, they have the role of parables, and by cloaking a profound truth in a subject which is earthy and recognizable, the message could be more easily dispersed to common folk. The Edo period also saw the appearance of a number of monk artists who were followers of Zen and who used painting and calligraphy to illustrate points of doctrine. After arriving in Nagasaki, they founded a new sect known as Obaku and so impressed members of both the imperial and shogunal courts that they were invited to build the temple of Mempuku-ji near Kyoto. The sect gradually spread, and at one time there were several hundred Obaku Zen temples throughout the country. Some subjects that Zen painters used are recognizable, such as Daruma, the first Zen patriarch who introduced the practice to China. An example is of a Daruma painted by Daishin Gito, 1656 to 1730. It is an ink on paper and in the collection of JEVM Kingado, USA. Daishin Jito was a Zen monk at Daitokuji Temple in Kyoto and became the abbot in 1706. His paintings on Zen subjects such as Daruma, the first Zen patriarch, are simple but beautifully painted. The other is the figure who have migrated from sanctity to folklore, such as Hotai. An example of the above type is painted by Obaku Kosen, titled Hotai's Bag and Stick, ink on paper, and at present in the JEVM Kingado, USA collection. Kosen is noted for his excellent calligraphy and finely composed Zen paintings. Many followers continued making Zen paintings, and it is curious to note that most of them produced their best work late in life. After decades of experience and meditation, Zen paintings are still made even today for religious purposes by monks in temples all over the country. But the last major figure was Nantembo Toju, 1839 to 1925, who saw Japan through the turmoil of its change from an enclosed feudalism to modern industrial state. He was named after a stick bow that he cut from Nandina tree and used to discipline monks who dozed off during meditation practice, and also employed as the subject for painting executed in a single violent stroke of ink. Nantembo came to realize that there were three methods of teaching: by silent meditation, by studying the written words of past masters, and by paintings. An example painted by Nantembo Toju is of a god, ink on paper, collection of JEVM Kingado, USA. The hollow god is a subject that appears in the Chao Chu Lu, an ancient record of Zen lore, and serves to illustrate the meaning that the truth should be brought first in oneself before looking elsewhere. He saw that the average person with a mind clogged with trivia, paintings were perhaps the most effective conveyors of the truth. Visiting Chinese artists and their pupils. Many Chinese artists visited Nagasaki during the 18th and 19th century, but not all were of equal artistic stature. Because of the Japanese respect for Chinese culture, even mediocre talents could find pupils and market for their painting. Shen Quan, Japanese Shen or Chin Nanpin, 1682 to 1768, an artist little known in his native land, who was in Nagasaki between 1731 and 1733, was among the most accomplished and influential. Shen Quan specialized in brilliantly colored realistic depictions of birds, flowers, fish, insects, and other exotic creatures. His works revealed his indebtedness to both Shung academic and Ming realistic painting. Few survive, and many of those traditionally attributed to him are now believed to be the work of other Chinese artists whose names have been forgotten, or of his Japanese follower Kumashiro Yuhi So Shishiki, 1715 to 1786, and their numerous disciples. The designation Nagasaki School is generally employed to describe the realistic genre of bird and flower painting Kachoga they popularized. Birds and flowers had long figured in Japanese painting, but until the 17th century had functioned primarily as seasonal metaphors rather than as subjects of interest in their own right. Further influences from China and the West revitalized this tradition, long dominated by painters of the Kano and Tosa schools, infusing it with qualities that simultaneously satisfied the new fascination and empirical values and the deep-rooted appreciation of lush and sensuously colored exotica. Shishiki's Rooster and Hen under a Willow Tree is dated to 1770. It is a hanging scroll, ink and colors on silk, Nagasaki Prefectural Museum. Typifies the synthesis of representational accuracy and decorative jewel-like tones that Japanese viewers found so compelling. Shishiki painted this vignette using a variety of techniques characteristic of Nagasaki school: stippling to give volume to the tree trunk, the application of color in mokotsu, the boneless manner for the flowers, and the use of fine pointillist brushstrokes for feathers. This compositional approach and meticulous technique for rendering plumage was subsequently adopted by Kyoto painter Ito Jakachu, who had close contacts with monks of Obaku sect. Shishiki was instrumental in popularizing the Nagasaki school. Little is known about his early artistic training in Edo, where he was born and lived until he went to Nagasaki in the hope of receiving instruction from the Chinese master. After studying in this port city with the Chinese painter Shung Chiang, Japanese So Shigen, from whom he took his artistic name, he became an enthusiastic promoter of the Nagasaki school, publishing several manuals of the themes and styles. His interest in European pictorial technique is also led to the close association with Hiraga Ginnai, 1728 to 80, the leading Dutch studies Rangaku, scholar in Edo, whose influential compendium of Materia Medica he illustrated. He also became moderately competent in European style oil painting, which he later taught to people in other parts of the country. The leading master of the transition from single block black and white prints to be printed two color designs, mostly in pink and green, was Okumura Masanobu, 1686 to 1764, who claimed credit as well for invention of a new shape, the extremely long and narrow pillar print, and a new mode, the perspective print Yuki E, in contrast with the saturated hues of hand applied colors. Block printing permitted subtle, delicate, low to color combinations at the same time that the growing command of the artist produced more complex figure compositions. The parody on a maple viewing party is dated to 1750. It is a two-color woodblock print and belongs to the Edo period. It is at present in the Metropolitan Museum of Art, New York. Combines the Tosa version of the narrative scroll tradition with the decorative development. The maple viewing party is an early example of an increasingly popular kind of print called mitete e, at once charming and parodist, in which various sacred cows, secondary Buddhist deities, Confucian exemplars of virtue, aristocratic court nobles, and heroic samurai are portrayed as pretty young girls. There could be no clearer expression than these parodies of the light-hearted exuberance and irreverence of the Japanese townsmen newly come into their own. The three beauties in Masanobu's print are attired cap a pie as a members of the imperial guards. Ito Jakachu was the son of a prosperous Kyoto merchant and inheritor of the family business, was decorous and restrained in his private life. In his painting, however, he was equally eccentric and uninhibited. In 1755, aged 40, he turned the business over to his brother in order to study painting with a teacher of the Kano school. At the same time, he became friends with Tibetan and Zen monk who in 1772 became abbot of Shokuji, Kyoto, where Tensho Shubun and Sheishu had begun their careers. Tibetan introduced Jakuchu to the cultural and religious cities of Kyoto and enabled him to study Shokuko-ji's sizable collection of old Chinese, Korean and Japanese painting. Between about 1758 and 1770, Jakuchu created his masterpiece, the 30 large hanging scrolls of the colorful realm of living beings. Doshu Kusai E, represented here by golden pheasants in snow. It is a hanging scroll, ink and color on silk, and it is at present in the Imperial House Collection, Tokyo. These he presented to Shokuji along with a Shaka triad as a votive offering and memorial to his brother. All but the Shaka triad were later given by the temple to the imperial household. Jakuchu's study of Shokuku-ji, Korean icon, informs his Shaka triad. He also studied the temple collection of Ming dynasty. Professional and academic works, particularly the fur and feather subjects, but his own renditions of animals and plants are true creative transformations. They do not look nothing like the Chinese painting, nor do they resemble any works of his contemporaries. Some paintings in this set are more conventional than others, but the Golden Peasants exemplifies his obsessive concern with textile-like patterning and his penchant for sudden weird aesthetic events like the hole through the snow-covered trunk at the lower left or the snow-laden branches that trail like melting wax. The overall pattern of the pine needles provides a nervous, almost vibrating background. Jacucho's monochrome ink paintings are, if anything, wilder and certainly far more abbreviated than the colorful realm scrawls.